Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm tired. Good night. I'm just kidding. Not that kind of tired. I'm tired of people thinking that Nintendo is immune to criticism. Because, and I know what it is, because, well, they made a lot of our childhoods great. You know, hell, they made mine great. I have a lot of great memories with the company. Always had good luck with their products. To this day, I enjoy a lot of their IPs and their games and stuff, but I'll still call them out when they do stupid things. And it's like I just don't understand why it's like. I mean, well, I do because it's like, oh, it was our childhood and stuff. But sometimes you just have to accept the fact that I don't know. But sorry, my allergies are going nuts. Either that or I'm getting a cold. It is that time of the year, after all. I hardly ever get sick. I'll get like a runny nose maybe like once a year, but that's beside the point. Um, anyway, back to Nintendo because it's like. And it's not even just Nintendo, it's the entertainment industry as a whole. People think that, like, whether it be a company or a product or a celebrity, that, people think just because they like them, they shouldn't be allowed to be criticized, and it drives me absolutely insane. I actually made a whole video about this, I'll put the link to that in the description. I did that video a while ago, but right now we're focusing on Nintendo. Nintendo, it's like, people think that they're like this god, which, yeah, they have done some amazing things. Like, hell, if it wasn't for Nintendo, video games probably wouldn't be around today. They brought video games back from the 1983 video game crash, which, if you never heard of that, look it up. It's pretty interesting. The 1983 video game crash. Yeah. But, what was I going to say? Yeah, so Nintendo, I think people act like they've never made mistakes before, even though they've made a lot of them. Like, let's see, there was how they first brought out amiibos. Like, they thought like they would, like, if there was, let's say there was like 5 new figures, and they'd give like 3 of each of them to each store instead of like 20 or something. And Nintendo was like, oh, we didn't know it was going to be that popular. It's like, did you see the success of Skylanders and like Disney Infinity and stuff? And then, there was when they made the N64 use cartridges when everyone else was moving on to CDs, not making the Wii an HD console, the Wii U's marketing, the Virtual Boy. And there's a whole bunch of other examples, or like what happened with Rare. Everyone thinks that like Microsoft ruined Rare, which, granted, Rare under Microsoft's leadership, they haven't been that great. They've delivered a couple of good games here and there, but they're definitely a shell of what they once were, which is unfortunate. But the thing is, when they actually Rare wanted to find a buyer, and Nintendo was like, nah, and then Microsoft was one who bought them. But like I said, Microsoft, and Rare was like showing cracks before they were bought by Microsoft, and Nintendo wasn't exactly that great to them either. Like, one of the many reasons that Conker's Bad Fur Day failed or didn't sell well was because Nintendo refused to acknowledge the game. Like, they basically distanced themselves from it. And then there was the whole thing with, like, when they were working on that game Dinosaur Planet, and then Sakurai like made them reskin the whole game into Star Fox Adventures. That's just a couple of examples. Then there was that whole number of years ago when Nintendo started that whole YouTube partner program, that if you wanted to promote their games on your channel, you had to sign up for this service that it was like, if your channel was making money from like ad revenue, it would be, instead of it being divided between the content creator and YouTube, it was now divided between the content creator, YouTube, and Nintendo, because they wanted a cut of that pie, even though it's literally just free advertising. People, whether it be a review or a let's play, it makes people watch the video and go like, ooh, that game looks good, I'll have to go check it out, or it sounds cool, or whatever. And I've said this before, I was like, I can't even remember the last time I bought a game because of a commercial I saw on TV, which is like when Nintendo was like, nah, that doesn't work, we'll just keep spending big bucks to make commercials that pretty much nobody watches. Well, nobody that buys our games or products anyway. And I remember like people actually trying to defend that for us. This is what people literally signing up for the service, and I'm just like, why? But speaking of services, let's talk about the more recent thing, Nintendo Switch Online, and then Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack, which if you're unfamiliar with this, basically it's a service that you sign up for $20 a year, because it's like the old saying, you get what you pay for. You know, it's very bare bones because they're not really offering much. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got Nicole. Of course, I'm recording this on Monday. It'll probably be gone by Thursday when I put this video out. But anyway, what was I gonna say? So yeah, Nintendo Switch Online. You know, $20 a year, and basically it lets you play games online. Even though for the first year and a half you could play them online without this service. You know, it's basically a paywall. And it was like a lot of people. Well, some people knew about this, that this service was coming. Some people didn't, but it was like you had a year and a half, and this is all you came up with. So the service, like, it makes you suddenly you have to pay for playing online. It gives you access to old NES and Super Nintendo games. Originally it was just NES, then it was later Super Nintendo. It took them a year to add that, even though, well, I'll get back to more of that in a second. You have cloud saves, which something Xbox offers for free, and you also have quite possibly the worst voice chat I've ever seen. You know, I literally, probably next to never, I barely ever use voice chat, but it's still an important part of online gaming. And it's like, whether it be Xbox, PlayStation, or PC, when you use online voice chat, it's literally just, you plug the headset into the controller and you're good to go. With this, it's like, first you have to get this special app on your phone, then you plug your phone into the Switch, you plug the headset into your phone, turn the app on, and that's how it works. Like, what? So, now as for this whole NES Super Nintendo thing, which, well, like, originally, the Wii U, and 3DS had what was called the Virtual Console, and across these systems, I'm not going to go, like this one had this one had that, I'm just going to go across the whole three. You had NES, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, N64, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx 16, and I think a couple of others. You had games for all those systems, and they would come out, like, at least once a week. They would have, like, a few new games for, like, a couple of the different systems. Like, like, 1 week they'd add 2 new NES games and maybe a Super Nintendo game. The next week they add, like, a couple of Genesis games and an N64 game, or whatever. So, with this, it was like with this NES and Super Nintendo games, it's like they add 2 new games. No, first it was just NES games. And they'd add 2 new games each month. Then a year later, they finally added SNES games. And keep in mind, with every time they would upload one of these videos, like, oh, here's the new latest games, these videos would get, like, ratioed to hell. In other words, they'd get, like, way more dislikes than likes. And so, then, you know, like I said, a year later, they finally added SNES games, and it was like, you know, again, like, you know, every month they'd add a couple new games, like, even though with the Virtual Console, like I said, they'd add a few more every week. And then they slowly started, like, it was like every once in a blue moon they'd add new games. Like, you know, they went from adding games monthly to every few months or something. They actually haven't updated it since July, and there's still so many games missing from this, which I actually made a list. And this isn't all of them, this is just some of them. So for the NES game, there you have the classics like the Super Mario Brothers games, the 2 Zelda games, Blaster Master, Ninja Gaiden, Excite Bike, Dr. Mario, the 2 Double Dragon games. You have some hidden gems like Vice Project Doom, Scat, Journey to Silius. And then you have games that are just like, why is that out there compared to all the other great games that this library has, which include Mighty Bomb Jet, Tennis, and Pro Wrestling. And then there's, you know, all these games missing, like the Contra games, the Castlevania games, the Mega Man games, Star Tropics games, Battletoads, which Mega Man, Contra, all that, I'll get back to that in a second, but moving on to Super Nintendo, you have the classics like Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Joe and Mac, or the Joe and Mac 1 and 2, Super Metroid, Mario Kart, F-Zero, Star Fox, Breath of Fire, and for hidden gems, you have Peacekeepers, Earth Defense Force, or EDF, whatever, and Wild Guns. Then you have bad games like friggin' Doomsday Warrior and Tough Enough, which, like, Doomsday Warrior, oh my god, that is, it's not the worst fighting game on the Super Nintendo, but it is up there. That game is so bad. And then, for missing games, you have Earthbound, which so many people have been clamoring for. Personally, it's not really my cup of tea, but I know how popular that game is. Chrono Trigger, the Final Fantasy games. Final Fight games, the Mega Man X game. Yep, definitely getting a cold. Contra 3, Super Castlevania 4, the Earthworm Jim games, and Turtles in Time, which... Turtles in Time, I know it's a licensed game, but RGT85 made a really good point that it's like, if Arcade 1-Up, a much smaller company, they can get the license to Turtles in Time, why can't Nintendo? And as for the games like the Mega Man games and the Contra Castlevania games, I know there's, the collections, but the thing is, people like having a variety, or having what's the word I'm looking for, options. Like, not everyone's going to sign up for Nintendo Switch Online. Not everyone's going to buy those collections, so why not get those games on there as well? Then this past summer, they announced the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, which, like, it's an additional thing, like, it's like an add-on for the service, like, or it basically upgrades the service for an additional fee. And it's like, it'll have N64 and Genesis games, which should have been part of the basic online service, and then also Animal Crossing DLC, which, a game that not everyone owns, even though it's immensely popular. Not everyone's an Animal Crossing fan. I personally never got into the games. And so people were like, okay, it's probably going to be an extra $10 or $15. $30. $30 just to add 2 new consoles that should have been part of the basic online service, and DLC for a game that not everyone owns. And keep in mind, you basically just gain access to this DLC. You're basically just digitally renting it. You're renting DLC. Who the hell rents DLC? And then the game, and this actually also relates to the Contra and Castlevania things. I couldn't help but notice that the Genesis games include Contra Hardcore and Castlevania Bloodlines. Okay, so we have the Genesis Contra and Castlevania games, but not the NES and Super Nintendo ones, so that kind of debunks that whole argument of, like, the collections. And then it's just like, that video got so badly ratioed when they announced it that it was $3. And then plus once that it actually came out, it was like so many people were showing off like, oh my god, look how bad the lag is and stuff. And then people were like, oh, well, I haven't had that problem. Well, it's like, well, just because you haven't had the problem doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And, it's like, I don't know. But it was funny, I remember that video got so badly ratioed, like prior to hiding the dislike counter, I think it was like, which was like over a couple of months ago or whatever, it was like, I think it had like 18,000 likes and like almost 200,000 dislikes, 183,000 to be precise. So 18,000 likes, 183,000 dislikes. Gee, I wonder how people feel about the service. And it's funny, this was when YouTube decided to hide the dislike counter, which is something they've been talking about for years. But it was like, I know them. I remember they first talked about that years ago, and it was like, isn't it a little convenient that now it officially happens when Nintendo got their most disliked video? And I know what it is. It's because they want to protect these big companies, whether it be like Nintendo or Dunkin' Donuts, Walmart, Geico. I'm just throwing names out there. It's like they put their products on YouTube. They don't want to see it again ratioed. And YouTube's like, oh, these are the companies that make us the big bucks. So, we get rid of the dislike feature so we don't drive them away, or whatever. Even though dislikes are help people to improve, like hell, I've I've received dislikes on videos before, like, I don't care. It's like, maybe they didn't like my take on something, or maybe the music was too loud. That was a mistake I've made in the past, and somebody actually, called me out on it, and I'm like, you're right, I need to work on that. See, that's what the dislike feature is for. But that aside, this service, and it's like, people, like, try and justify this, like, oh, if you do the math, it's only $4.78 a month. It's like, that's not the point. It's not the money. It's the principle. It's the lack of what they're offering. It's just, I don't know why people think it. I mean, if people enjoy the service, they enjoy the expansion pack, that's fine. Go right ahead. But majority of people think it's not worth it. It really isn't. So, and there's so many more things they could add. Like, they still missing friend messaging, which I know it's like a family-friendly console and there's like kids on there, but parental blocking is a thing. Parental controls. If you don't think your kid should be using the online feature, that's what parental controls are for. And maybe they could bring back Miiverse, add more games to the service, like Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, maybe GameCube if that's possible. But it's just, I'm sure there's other things they could add, but it's just, maybe a basic voice chat. Get rid of the whole peer-to-peer, make actual dedicated servers. But yeah, that's I don't know. So I guess that's about it. Maybe you guys can think of some other features that they could add to the service to make it more worth the while. But until then, for those of you still here, thanks for listening to my rant, and I'll see you next time.